Maya, I am absolutely certain I gave you $500,000. What are you talking about? The Thanksgiving dining room was heavy with the warm aroma of spices. At the center of the table sat a perfectly roasted turkey, its skin shining under the soft lights. I was in the middle of thanking my Aunt Helena for the bicycle she was supposed to have given me. She froze, a delicate crystal wine glass paused midair in her hand. Her face filled with pure confusion as she replied, "I never gave you any bicycle." The instant those words left her mouth, a sharp ringing filled my ears, as if something inside me had cracked beyond repair. I slowly placed the silver fork back onto my plate and met her steady gaze. 500,000, she continued calmly. You're always traveling for work, aren't you? That's why I chose to give you money instead of a physical gift. I transferred it directly to your account. With that amount, you could easily buy a luxury car if you wanted. Before she could finish her sentence, my younger sister Lily, seated across from me, suddenly began coughing uncontrollably. The coffee she had been sipping splashed onto her spotless white silk dress, yet she didn't even attempt to clean it. Her eyes were locked on our aunt, wide with disbelief. Beside her, my mother, Marian Cole, stiffened. Her hand trembled slightly as she hurriedly took a sip of red wine, as though trying to steady herself. Her eyes darted around the table, unable to settle on any single face. I took a breath and spoke carefully, keeping my voice level. Aunt Helena, thank you very much, but that's strange. What was delivered outside my apartment was a rusty, used bicycle, almost 10 years old. Used? My aunt's eyebrows shot up, suspicion flashing across her face. Yes, a few days ago my mother called me and said, "It's a gift from Aunt Helena. She asked me to send you an old bicycle she used to ride so you wouldn't get out of shape." Right now, the bicycle sitting in my apartment's parking area is exactly that, an old exercise bike. The chain is loose, and the basket is bent. A heavy silence settled over the table. Aunt Helena was not someone easily fooled. She was a ruthless businesswoman who had built her empire from nothing. I watched quietly as doubt hardened into anger in her eyes. "Marian," she said coldly, "explain this to me." Her voice dropped even lower. "A few weeks ago, I personally deposited $500,000 into the account I share with Maya. I told you clearly to inform her and let her choose whatever she wanted. So tell me, why has my gift turned into a bicycle?" My mother's lips parted, then closed again. She glanced helplessly toward Lily, silently pleading for support. But Lily was glued to her phone, fingers moving frantically across the screen, as if she were desperately trying to erase something before it could be discovered. "Well, Helena," my mother finally said, her voice cracking, "this must be some kind of misunderstanding. Maya probably got confused." There was no confidence in her words. I lowered my eyes, studying my fingertips. For a living, I work as a cybercrime investigator, someone who tracks money trails that disappear into digital darkness, solving cases for governments and international financial institutions. The exact amount Aunt Helena had mentioned, $500,000, combined with my mother's visible panic and the way my sister's fingers never stopped fidgeting over her phone, triggered something deep inside me. My professional instincts were whispering the truth, steady and unmistakable. Beneath this elegant Thanksgiving dinner was a betrayal so bitter it made my stomach turn, one committed by my own blood. My thoughts drifted back to 10 days earlier. It was a cold Monday in November. Outside, icy winds scraped against the city streets. Inside my office, everything was as it always was, clean, sterile, lifelessly quiet. Multiple monitors glowed in front of me as I dissected a complicated international money laundering network, tracing invisible trails across borders and accounts. Then, the silence was interrupted by the dull vibration of my phone. The caller ID read, "Lily." "Maya, about Thanksgiving this year." Her voice sounded strangely upbeat, too light, too rehearsed. "You mentioned you're drowning in work, right? So you really don't need to force yourself to come back for Thanksgiving. Mom said this is a crucial phase in your career, so we should let you focus and rest properly." She paused only briefly before continuing. Plane tickets aren't cheap anyway. You should just save that money for yourself. My fingers slowly left the keyboard. In all my 33 years of life, this was the first time Lily had ever shown concern for my work. She had never, not once, prioritized anyone over herself. I can rearrange my schedule, I replied. I'll talk to Aunt Helena directly. No, she said quickly. She's extremely busy right now. Anyway, that's settled. We'll handle everything here. You just relax wherever you are. All right, I said. Love you. The call ended abruptly. For several moments, I stared at the dark screen of my phone. Her words echoed in my mind like corrupted data, misaligned, illogical, quietly alarming. The same kind of inconsistencies I was trained to notice in financial crimes. The very next day, a large delivery truck stopped in front of my apartment building. Miss Maya Cole, the delivery man asked. Yes, I replied. This package is from Miss Marion Cole. A gift from my mother. An uneasy feeling settled in my chest as I stepped forward to receive it. What was placed before me wasn't a gift box. It was a bicycle. No, calling it a bicycle felt far too kind. It looked like discarded scrap, the kind of thing pulled straight from a junkyard. Rust clung stubbornly to the entire frame. The handlebars were bent out of shape. The chain had slipped off completely. The front basket was crushed and misshapen. Both tires were flat, collapsed beyond any hope of repair. Tied loosely to the base of the handlebars was a small card, written in my mother's handwriting. To Maya, Aunt Helena has been worried about your health since you spend all day sitting. That's why she decided to give you a bicycle she once loved. It's a bit old, but it should be enough to get you moving, don't you think? Don't waste your aunt's kindness. Use it with gratitude. I stopped just short of touching the corroded metal. My aunt was a strict woman, yes, but she demanded excellence in everything. She valued only the best. Would she truly give her niece something so worn down it looked outright dangerous? All in the name of my health. Then there was Lily's near-desperate insistence that I not come home for Thanksgiving. A quiet but unrelenting spark of suspicion flared inside me. Without hesitation, I booked the earliest available flight and began preparing to return to my parents' house. I needed to see for myself what they were so determined to keep hidden. While on the plane, I scrolled through my sister Lily's social media account. She had built a massive following by showcasing a glamorous, high-end lifestyle, one post more polished than the last, each more deceptive than the one before it. One image, however, made my breath catch. The background showed an exclusive residential area. Parked prominently in the frame was a brand-new luxury vehicle, spotless and imposing, radiating wealth. Lily leaned casually against it, a sparkling drink in her hand, her smile confident, almost victorious. The caption read, "The perfect reward for myself. Hard work never goes unrewarded." After landing at the airport, I drove straight toward the house where I had grown up. I rented a car and didn't waste a single minute. The moment I pulled up in front of the house, my eyes were drawn to it instantly. A spotless white luxury vehicle parked confidently in front of the garage. I took a slow breath and stepped out. Before I even reached the front door, laughter drifted from inside. My mother's voice mixed with Lily's high-pitched, excited giggles. The instant I knocked, the laughter cut off as if someone had flipped a switch. After a brief, uneasy silence, I heard the lock turn. "Oh, Maya, why are you?" My mother's face, when she opened the door, wasn't marked by surprise so much as raw fear. She quickly masked it with a forced, unfamiliar smile. "Lily told me you were far too busy with work to come back," she said quickly. "Your father had to leave on an unexpected business trip today as well. But, well, welcome home." She wrapped her arms around me. Her sweater carried the scent of expensive perfume, yet her embrace felt stiff. Her arms trembled faintly, and there was no warmth, no real sense of relief or joy. As I stepped into the living room, Lily rose from the sofa. A large, emerald-cut diamond sparkled on her finger, so oversized it immediately caught my eye. "So, you did come after all," she said lightly. "Weren't you supposed to be buried in work?" Her gaze searched my face too carefully, as though she were trying to uncover my true reason for being there. "I adjusted my schedule," I replied calmly. "I also wanted to thank Aunt Helena in person for her gift." Lily's expression stiffened, just for a fraction of a second. "Oh, that bicycle," she said quickly. "Aunt Helena really is worried about your health, but she'll be arriving later today, and honestly, we have so much to catch up on. Let's not get into that right now, okay?" Just then, a man stepped out from the kitchen. Perfectly styled hair, confident posture, a tailored suit that fit a little too well. Lily's fiancé. "Nice to finally meet you, Maya," he said smoothly. "I've heard so much about you from Lily. A cybersecurity specialist, right? I work in finance myself. Maybe someday we'll get the chance to exchange ideas." He extended his hand, his smile polished and deliberate. I shook it briefly. "And the white car outside?" I asked casually. "Who does it belong to?" The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Lily answered too fast, as if she'd been waiting for the question. "Oh, that's his," she said, nodding toward her fiancé. "His work has been going exceptionally well lately, so he decided to reward himself. A fresh start, you know." She laughed lightly, then added, "Well, honestly, I deserve some credit too. She's been doing extremely well with her online collaborations," Lily added quickly. "And as an engagement gift, she covered a large portion of the upfront cost herself." Ryan smiled, looking slightly embarrassed, but his pride was impossible to miss. "Honestly, it's far more than I deserve," he said modestly. "I see," I replied. "Being able to exchange such generous gifts with each other, that truly is admirable, an ideal partnership." I kept my smile perfectly intact. My mother busied herself in the kitchen, moving pots and trays around as if deeply occupied, deliberately avoiding my gaze. On the sideboard nearby, something caught my eye, a wedding brochure carelessly tossed aside. The venue was extravagant, the guest list extensive, the ceremony lavish. Every detail silently translated into a single figure in my mind. 500,000. "Maya, don't just stand there," my mother said sharply. "Your aunt will be arriving any moment now. Go get changed. That plain outfit of yours will ruin the mood of Thanksgiving." She brushed at my sleeve, as if removing imaginary dust. I went upstairs to the guest room and placed my bag on the bed. The face staring back at me from the mirror was unexpectedly calm. From downstairs, laughter rose again, bright, careless, followed by the unmistakable pop of an expensive bottle being opened. The number echoed in my thoughts. 500,000. The rusted bicycle left at my door. The flawless white vehicle sitting proudly in the garage. Every scattered piece of the puzzle had already fallen neatly into place. When dinner was finally ready, the doorbell rang. Aunt Helena stood at the entrance. She wore a deep navy silk dress, a strand of large pearls resting against her collarbone. Her presence alone commanded respect, dignified, composed, and unshakable. "Maya, I'm so glad you came home," she said warmly. "Seeing you truly makes me happy." She hugged me gently, yet with unmistakable strength. For a brief moment, the ice deep in my chest nearly melted under the sincerity of her embrace. She wasn't part of this deception. That realization only strengthened my resolve. Aunt Helena took her seat at the head of the dining table. My mother sat to one side, and Ryan, Lily's fiancé, to the other. Across from me, Lily sat scrolling through her phone, absently rotating her hand so the oversized diamond on her finger caught the light again and again. Dinner progressed smoothly on the surface. Lily spoke animatedly about her growing online presence and her lavish wedding plans for the coming year. Ryan discussed his work in careful, measured tones. All smiles. All performances. And beneath it all, a lie worth $500,000 waited patiently to be exposed. My mother watched the two of them with dazzled, almost admiring eyes. Every so often, she turned toward me and offered cutting remarks disguised as advice. "You should work on yourself a little more too, Maya," she said coolly. Then, just as my aunt lifted a sharp knife to carve the turkey, I decided it was time to release the truth I had been holding back. "By the way, Aunt Helena," I said gently, my voice steadier than I had expected, "please allow me to thank you properly." The room quieted. "Thank you so much for the bicycle," I continued. "I'll make sure to take very good care of it." In that instant, clang! The knife struck the plate with a sharp sound that echoed through the dining room. My aunt froze. Slowly, she raised her head. Confusion rippled across her face, followed by a creeping sense of unease. "A bicycle?" she asked quietly. "Maya, what are you talking about?" Her voice dropped lower. "What I gave you was 500,000. How does that become a bicycle?" The moment those words landed, Lily, sitting across from me, violently spat out the coffee she had been drinking. What are you saying?" she gasped, choking. Her face flushed deep red, eyes wide with panic. Beside her, my mother's fork slipped from her fingers, clattering uselessly against the fine porcelain plate. I tilted my head slightly and looked back at my aunt. "But Aunt Helena," I said calmly, "what arrived at my apartment was an old, rust-covered used exercise bike. I was told it was something you had once used yourself." I paused. "Mom handed it to me and said, 'It's a gift from your aunt. She's worried about your health.'" The color drained from my aunt's face. "What did you just say?" she asked slowly. She set the knife down with deliberate care, her sharp gaze locking onto my mother, who had begun to tremble. "Marion," my aunt said coldly, "why has my gift been replaced with something like that?" "Well, Helena," my mother stammered, "this must be some kind of misunderstanding. Today is Thanksgiving, after all. Let's not ruin it over small details." "Small details." My aunt's voice sliced through the room like ice. 500,000 vanishing, and my niece receiving scrap metal instead. "And you call that a small detail?" At that moment, Ryan, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Now, Aunt Helena," he said smoothly. "This could simply be a clerical issue. I can contact the bank tomorrow. For now, let's just enjoy the meal." "No," I said calmly. I reached into my bag, pulled out a thick file of documents, and placed it firmly at the center of the table. "That won't be necessary." I looked at my aunt. "Whether this was a mistake or not, we can confirm everything right here, right now." Then I added quietly, "To be honest, Aunt Helena, there was something I couldn't shake over the past few days, so I conducted my own investigation." I stood up slowly and activated my tablet. The glow from the screen washed over the table, and I watched with cold satisfaction as the color drained from my mother's face, and from Lily's. This was the moment where my real profession finally stepped forward. "This is where my work truly begins," I said quietly. "Maya, what is all of this?" Aunt Helena asked sharply, her eyes fixed on the display. "Aunt Helena," I replied, tapping the screen, "this is where your 500,000 ended up." Bank transaction records appeared instantly. "November 14th, 2025, I continued. "You did deposit 500,000 into my account, exactly as you said." I swiped to the next entry. But just 20 hours later, at 10 o'clock on the morning of November 15th, nearly the entire amount, 499,800, was transferred out to an external account. I paused. "And the recipient of that transfer is sitting right here at this table." I enlarged the name. "Lily Cole." "What?" Ryan, seated beside her, turned sharply in disbelief. "Lily, what does this mean?" he demanded. "You told me everything you had, the car, the wedding funds, came from your own success. You said it was all legitimate." Lily's face went completely pale. Her hands trembled as her eyes dropped to the table, unable to meet his. "Ryan," I said coldly, advancing to the next screen, It appears you were just another person she deceived. I didn't look away as I continued. Lily betrayed both Aunt Helena's trust and mine, spending stolen money on personal indulgence and a wedding designed only to satisfy her vanity. Another document appeared. She even pulled you, someone completely unaware, into her lies, forcing you to help maintain the illusion of her success. I pointed to the file on the screen. Here is the purchase contract for that vehicle outside. The registered owner is Lily Cole. Every single payment traces directly back to the stolen funds taken from my account. I turned toward Ryan. You were led to believe she paid for it herself, when in reality, you were unknowingly paraded as part of her carefully constructed fantasy. No, this can't be real, Ryan whispered, collapsing back into his chair. Lily suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Stop it, she shouted. This is all fake. Anyone could fabricate something like this. She pointed at me, her voice shaking. Maya, you're trying to frame me. Fabricated, I replied calmly. Unfortunately for you, these records are official logs pulled directly from the bank's core system, complete with encrypted authentication markers. I tapped the screen again. When I conduct a serious investigation, there are no numbers in this world I can't reach. Another document appeared. And this, I said, is the power of attorney that made the transfer possible. The room went deadly silent. It was filed without my knowledge. Using this document, Marion Cole, my own mother, was granted full control over my bank account. I lifted a laser pointer and marked a single line at the bottom of the page. Please look at the signature. I let the words sink in. At first glance, it resembles mine, but forensic digital analysis confirms it was assembled by digitally stitching together samples of my handwriting from older documents. I lowered the pointer. The pen pressure is unnaturally uniform. There's none of the microscopic variation you see when a real human hand signs a document, I continued calmly. And most importantly, this. I zoomed in on the signature until it filled the entire screen. When I sign any important legal document, I always place a nearly invisible dot at the upper right corner of the first letter. It's an old, analog security habit I've used for years. I lifted my eyes. It's not here. I turned toward my mother. Mom, you focused so hard on copying my handwriting that you never noticed the habit itself. My mother suddenly covered her face. Her shoulders began to shake uncontrollably. I was only thinking about the family, she sobbed. Lily needed a beautiful wedding. You already earn more than enough money. I didn't think you'd even notice. You didn't think I'd notice, I repeated quietly. My voice turned cold, so cold it startled even me. You stole $500,000 from your own daughter and thought you wouldn't be discovered, in the very field she specializes in. The slide on my tablet changed. On the screen appeared one of Lily's carefully curated online posts, beside the official purchase contract for the white vehicle in the garage. That car you proudly showed off online as a reward for yourself, I said evenly. I checked the registration details. It was purchased in full, with cash, the day after Aunt Helena transferred the money to me. I paused. Hard work never betrays you, right? I looked directly at Lily. Well, the effort you put into stealing someone else's money was certainly impressive. Stop it, Maya, Lily screamed, bursting into tears. But there was no remorse in them. They were the cries of someone watching her glittering fantasy collapse, of pure self-obsession, finally meeting reality. I continued, my voice steady. The wedding venue deposit, $150,000. The custom dress, $30,000. The luxury overseas resort trip, $20,000. I tapped the screen one final time. All paid for with the money Aunt Helena gave to me. Isn't that right? Silence fell again. But this silence was different. It was heavy, suffocating. There was nowhere left to run. Slowly, Aunt Helena stood up. Her face held a depth of quiet fury I had never seen before. "Marion, Lily," she said, her voice shaking with restrained rage. "You didn't just betray my trust. You sold this family's very soul." With trembling hands, she took out her phone and dialed a number. "Yes," she said coldly. "Police. I need to report a serious case of financial fraud. The amount involved is $500,000. The location is my residence. The individuals responsible are sitting at this very table." "Aunt Helena, are you serious?" Lily cried. "I'm your niece. Calling the police, this has to be a joke, right?" Her voice cracked as she pleaded. "This is no joke at all." My aunt never once looked Lily in the eyes. "I built my wealth through honest, lawful work," Aunt Helena said calmly. "And I gave a gift worthy of my niece. To steal it, deceive me, and treat me like a fool, this goes far beyond anything that can be excused by calling it family." At that moment, Ryan, who had remained silent until now, pushed his chair back with a harsh scrape and stood up. "Ryan, where are you going?" Lily cried, reaching for his sleeve. He shook her off, as if she were something repulsive. "Don't touch me," he said. His voice was low, trembling with restrained rage. "You disgust me." He stared at her, eyes burning. "You told me you built your success on your own, that you wanted a wedding worthy of your achievements, that you dreamed of picking me up in a luxury car you earned yourself." He laughed bitterly. "I was proud of your ambition, proud of the woman you claimed to be. But to find out it was all funded with money stolen from your own sister, were you trying to destroy my career too?" "No, Ryan," Lily sobbed. "I just wanted you to see the best version of me." "The best version of yourself," he replied coldly. "A thief is never anyone's best version." With those words, Ryan grabbed his coat from the closet and walked straight to the front door without looking back even once. "This engagement is over. As of now, never appear in front of me again." The door slammed shut with a deep, final thud. It sounded like something breaking beyond repair. Lily's most cherished dream, her flawless life, collapsed in that instant. She crumpled to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. My mother rushed to her side, pulling her into her arms. Then she lifted her head and glared at me, her face twisted with rage. "Are you satisfied now, Maya?" she screamed. "With just a few words, you've ruined your sister's life. We're family. How could you be so cruel?" She continued bitterly. $500,000 means nothing to you. You could earn it again easily. Why couldn't you just think of it as sharing a little with your sister?" "Sharing," I repeated quietly. My voice was steady, unmistakable. "Mom, what you did wasn't sharing." I looked straight at her. "It was theft. You stole from me. You forged my signature. You used my identity without permission. You damaged my credibility." I took a breath. Have you ever once considered how much time, effort, and mental strain I endured, digging through the darkest corners of the digital world, to earn that money? "But we're family," she whispered. "Yes," I replied. "And that's something you should have remembered before you stole from me." Not long after, the distant sound of sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights washed over the white walls of my childhood home, casting an eerie glow. Neighbors peeked from their windows or gathered along the street, watching openly as two women were led away in handcuffs. "Maya," Aunt Helena said softly, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Are you certain this is what you want?" Her eyes reflected deep betrayal, and yet still carried a complicated concern for her nieces. "Yes, Aunt Helena," I replied quietly. "This isn't something we started. It's simply the end of the road they chose for themselves." After that night, the case quickly moved beyond local authorities. Federal investigators stepped in, and the charges escalated: interstate wire fraud, organized identity theft. Justice moved with unforgiving speed. My mother, identified as the primary offender, was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. When the verdict was read, she collapsed in tears inside the courtroom. I never once turned around to look at her. Lily received probation with a suspended sentence for her role in aiding the fraud and covering it up. But the punishment that truly broke them didn't come from the court. It came from life itself. My father filed for divorce soon after. Learning that the woman he had shared more than 30 years with had forged their own daughter's signature to steal money shattered him completely. The quiet man I had always known never recovered from that betrayal. Lily's carefully constructed world collapsed just as brutally. When the scandal surfaced, the audience she once adored turned merciless overnight. Every luxury she had flaunted, every grand plan she had boasted about, was exposed as being funded by stolen money taken from her sister. Her online presence became a daily storm of public outrage. The admiration vanished. Her career disintegrated. Eventually, she could no longer step outside without being recognized and condemned. Months later, I visited Aunt Helena. She handed me a sealed envelope. "This," she said calmly, "is a gift that was always meant for you. This time, go wherever you wish. Move forward using your own strength." Inside was a check for $500,000. I used it to start over, on my own terms. Sitting behind the wheel of my new car, I rested my hands lightly against the steering wheel and pressed the accelerator. The steady hum of the engine carried me forward, marking the beginning of a life finally free of lies, theft, and betrayal. I didn't look back. Not once. Thank you so much for watching this video on Justice After Dark. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more real-life investigations and shocking family betrayals, don't forget to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. What would you have done if you were in Maya's shoes? Drop your opinions and reactions in the comments below. I read every single one. Sharing this story with friends and family also helps spread awareness about fraud and family deception. Thank you again for supporting Justice After Dark, and I'll see you in the next story.